Be finding your favorite movie or your favorite television show and learning something new. You'll just have to listen to find out. Here is your host, Samantha Parrish. But for a film that's supposed to be the dark side of idolatry and the inner and some of the darker sidelines of sportsmanship, there wasn't a lot of sportsmanship showed in this movie. The film had pretty much mixed to negative reviews because it was unclear what it was trying to be, and to be honest, I feel like the wrong expectations are put on this movie that didn't deserve all of the negative reviews that it got. When you mix horror and sports together, it's gonna be a little bit weird, but when you put it in the hands of someone like Jordan Peele and Justin Tipping, it made that image look at least a little bit appealing. It wasn't going to be exactly gold, but there's some copper worth in here. So, grab your footballs and grab your jade eggs because we're about to get into him. So in the process for this movie coming out, I heard a lot of things going back and forth about where the origin point of the movie begins. So to the film's core, you could say that him is really about being an icon. They mention GOAT. They mention, God a lot. They mention influence. They mention leadership. They mention a lot of things that they want to put into Cam by making him the next quarterback and all of the titles that go with it, being more than just being a quarterback for the Saviors. Of course, that too, another heavy-handed thing, a symbolism. But with all the symbolism here, it really does help the movie a lot as much as it overwhelms the movie. In the celebrity culture that we have today, there is a non-stop praising for a majority of celebrities. I mean, it goes back to John Lennon saying, they were bigger than Jesus. Well, this is kind of like that now. There are a lot that have such a popularity. It is very much like you're praising somebody, and that fame in its game can go a lot to someone's head. So if you were supposed to have a horror sports story, there would need to be a heavy-handed amount of religious imagery and celebrity culture that pushes to that environment that is constantly chaotic, stressful, and sometimes downright scary. It's just that all of those things didn't really translate after the film came out. If you look at it on paper and you look at it for its concept, it's great. But then you look at this and go, what happened here? And the truth is, a lot happened there. I don't know if people were expecting to have this perfect depiction of sports and horror go together. But it was too interesting to not look away, but it just didn't deliver on something different. When the reality is, there's a lot of things you can take away from this movie. There is not a one-set answer, even though the whole film was about truly having a one-set answer, ironically. I think the commentary really speaks for this movie in many ways. If you just not take it seriously as much, there are a lot of very good, intriguing points and even great examples to take away from it. But the big question is, who exactly wanted to make this happen? Jordan Peele, of course, was a big producing name, but really, where does the idea for him come from? Even though the theme is very much centered around the greatest of all time, the GOAT, which is also a really great animated movie. But here, having GOAT be the term, it works. It's the point. It's very much on brand for how we use that word way more, which, it's great. But the inspiration actually comes from a lot of the NFL. I know, no shit, right? But it's actually a mix of different sports. Marlon Wayans' character is actually supposed to be an homage to Tom Brady, which if you look at it, Tom Brady does look a little bit like a villain these days with his fashion choices, so I can see that. on one part, but also in the whole grand spectrum of Tom Brady existing as this very idolatry figure in sports and just in general. I can very much see that. And one thing I heard a lot is that it was inspired a lot from Michael Jordan's former trainer, Tim Grover, who wrote a book about what it took to have the intensity, the mindset, demanding, and a lot of that went into the creation for this movie. And if you know those things, it does make it a little bit more respectable. But it kind of got drowned out when people saw the film and went, what was that? And yeah, I can understand that. But for a film that's supposed to be the dark side of idolatry and some of the darker sidelines of sportsmanship, there wasn't a lot of sportsmanship showed in this movie. The film, for what it is, it works with a lot of stuff that had a heavy hand of inspiration. Justin Tipping, the director, went on to say that this film feels sort of like the football version of Nosferatu and Ex Machina if you were to reimagine those characters as quarterbacks. And I'm like, that's a stretch, but whatever gets you touchdown. One of the biggest things that works in this movie isn't really the him himself, it's more of the Wayans in this movie. The Wayans have really gotten a way back into Hollywood, and it's been wonderful to see how they've been getting involved with different projects, including the resurrection of their series, Scary Movie, that was taken from them. It's nice to see more of them. But my God, are they good sports? And I'm not making a pun about that. When the film came out, Marlon Wayans took to Instagram to write this. Just to be clear, I respect the critics. Their job is to critique. I respect their work. It shapes our industry. But an opinion does not always mean it's everyone's opinion. Some movies are ahead of the curve. Innovation is not always embraced, and art is to be interpreted, and it's subjective. I've had a career of making classic movies that weren't critically received, and those movies went on to be classics. So don't take anyone's opinions, just go see for yourself. Love to all, him in theaters now. That's a good damn way to put it. So as someone who obviously loves movies, and I love how they work and how they operate, but you cannot go into movies without having a step back from your own opinion and seeing someone else's, and try to take it with a grain of salt before attacking or proclaiming. There has to be some sort of median in the twilight zone to exist with how everyone's opinion is going to be different. And oh boy, did everyone have an opinion about this movie. It was like how people were just raking it across the coals, and I kept thinking, this is way too interesting for it not to take off. And Marlon Wayans, I guess you gotta call him a Simpsons writer, but he did call it. He made movies that weren't critically received at the time, but then they went on to be classics, so him may or may not be a classic, but it did make some sort of impact later on. And one of the greatest examples to what he said is something I quote very, very regularly from John R. Dilworth, who said that art does not have to have a right answer. And the way that people were taking him way too seriously, there wasn't a lot of wrong answers to really be all upset about. It didn't really do anything too bad. It was just a different taste. And a good answer to that positive reinforcement he gave the film, Netflix put out a bulletin that was shared by Marlon Wayans that it had become popular and found a home on Netflix, and the numbers of viewing went up. Like, it finally got through all of that negative noise and got to where people were going to give it a better shot and see it for what it truly is, of, a fun time. Not everything has to be taken seriously, and yeah, sometimes you have to have a film with logic. It's what I complained about in my last episode, but this is just one of those films you don't have to take too seriously, and you just kind of enjoy to look at it and take the performances for what they did, not define it entirely by this one thing. We put too much of a label on this film, and now it's nice that it's getting a better label. And it truly takes a good sport to be a good sport, because, man, did I really love the character of Isaiah. It's not the first time that we've had a character like Isaiah that is so obsessed with being an icon that there is no such thing as no in his world. But his being a commentary on how that need for fans grows and what it feels like, but how easy it is to just abuse power like that. And he has no fucking clue what he's done because it's Isaiah's world and we're just living in it accordingly. To Isaiah, football doesn't exist without him because he is football. Whatever Isaiah was in the past, it's gone. It is this current version that's all that matters, and there is no way that it's going to be taken away from him. Not even his protege that he is supposed to be training to replace him. But one part of this movie that I absolutely love, that I did not expect to be my favorite part of the movie, Julia Fox. Yeah, this wasn't about Cam, this wasn't about Isaiah. Oh my God. Isaiah's wife, Elsie, was just the right amount of craziness that really marries into the lifestyle that these characters have. That she says it herself that, you know, what you see here, this is just a normal day, a Tuesday for us. But when she had me at pop this jade egg in your pussy and really maximize your orgasm, and I'm like, oh, I can hear the I was John Safdie's Muse and Uncut Gems. It's just, it was all coming back to me, man. And her outfits, they ate. Oh. If I could just have her entire wardrobe, I'd be okay with it. I don't know how I'm going to get it, but I would find a way. Everything about her outfits was just so creative and so unique. I am always for that bitch that dresses for something that is way out of this world. By all means, if you do not really want to get into this movie for its football aspect, you can definitely get in for the Julia Fox aspect. That's a big reason for me going back to rewatch this movie. I love that Elsie is a character that's not supposed to be your damsel in distress. You're not supposed to trust her. But she's not exactly a threat. She's a part of the world building onto why this weird world exists the way it does in the House of the Whites. The way that there is an entirely separate commentary on idolatry with her influencer culture, not needing to be so much, but just enough to know, yeah, of course she'd be popping on that train. Not much had to go into her character, but boy, was there enough for her character. Elsie truly is one of the fun parts of this movie that I think works amazingly. So even this film was mostly a miss more than a hit, the ending really made things complicated. Now personally, I like the way that it ended. Having Cam just walk away, just like Rambo in the desert, and just wiping his hands clean of the absolute clusterfuck of chaos he went through. There were 2 different endings. In the first one, Isaiah survived his beating and he watches on TV as Cam is shown to have won the Super Bowl for the Saviors, revealing that Cam did sign the contract after all. But, you know, that's not bad. You know, I would give anything to see Isaiah just sitting there like, can't be killed. And then the second alternate ending reveals that Cam joined another football team and didn't end up going with the Saviors. He got there without any help or any rituals or any bribes. He just wanted to win it, you know, as a clean bean. And the film ends with Cam staring at a spinning football, hinting that despite not selling his soul, they're still watching him. They are a lot of good ideas that does feel fitting for the film that can go many different ways. You can hint that at the very end that Isaiah is still alive, and you can still hint that Cam went with another team, but it ain't gonna stop from him being part of the big goal in the end game of it all. It's like how my favorite phrase goes from John R. Dilworth, art doesn't have to have a right or wrong answer. These are all valid answers as much as they are definitive to the storyline that has been created with it. You can insert any one of them. They're all weird, but they all match the vibe of the movie. Honestly, since this film has so many things going for it, that this doesn't have to be the be-all end-all. It is just a film presenting idolatry ideas and what happens when you follow your idols. Like, it's a story we've heard before, but my God, they do it so visually stunning here. Everything about this movie just keeps your eyes engaged, even if it doesn't keep your mind really focused on the logic. Whereas I just talked about in Apex, where the logic really hurt not having it present, this is one you don't really have to have it present a whole lot for. Because everything has such an interesting idea involved with it, because it creates more questions into what's going on in this world. Some of that stuff can be answered in different ways, and sometimes you don't have to have the answers. This is a film where you can walk away like Cam in the end of the movie and be like, okay, shit, that was a ride. But for something that is supposed to be built about idolatry aspects with sportsmanship, I feel like they did as best as they could with it. This is a film that is deliberately in your face. It has so many different commentaries and it's biting more than it can chew, but it's supposed to feel like that. It's supposed to feel like constant, non-stop chaos, that no matter where you turn, there is something batshit crazy going on. I'd rather have a film that gives 100% in general to what it can offer than something that doesn't want to try. And my God, this film did try. I don't know if this film was a savior, but I think it did make a touchdown somewhere. So that is going to be an early wrap for the 2026 films to review. I had a good time being able to touch on a few newer flicks that came out. Next month I have a very interesting episode planned for a while now, involving a classic movie that has never been talked about on here until now. But until then, you can catch up with me in between uploads at the Queen of the Screen. I've been upping my reel game. It's been a real deal around there. And if you're looking for different places to listen to me, you can find me a lot of places. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, probably somewhere in the distance screaming about movies. Pretty much anywhere. Just type in the Screen Queen and you'll find my glitchy glasses and we go from there. Alright everyone, you take care. Watch out for spinning footballs. Stay amazing. This is your Screen Queen, signing off. Bye-bye!